talk about some of the hurdles and some of the real-world challenges that get in the way and some of the creative ways to get past them successfully. But before we begin, I'd like to introduce you to Sweetalkers, our group. And I'll do that. Well, quickly about Sweetalkers. Lisa and I started Sweetalkers about 1.5 years ago, and there was so much confusion and downright wrong information for diabetics on the web. We realized that people concerned about their blood sugar really had no place to go to find good support, well-researched information, and all about the best nutrition to keep their blood sugar in range. So we run an actual physical group get-together every other month in La Jolla. We have a website where we give people access to content that's well-researched, and we're working on putting an online course for basic nutrition for diabetics online. Membership to Sweetalkers is free because we decided it was time to give back a little bit to the community. And I'll tie in the reason that Sweetalkers is here at a Low Carb conference in just a couple of minutes. The topics for today is, first of all, we're going to go back to where it all started and tell you a little bit about our personal history and our personal stories. Promise we'll keep it short. They aren't big dramatic stories. And then we'll talk about diet or lifestyle. What's changing? Why is changing your lifestyle so darn difficult? You know, what kind of challenges come into play when you're trying to change your lifestyle? And when we're talking about that, we'll talk about cravings and what to do about the cravings when they hit. And then we'll tell you about our secret to transitioning to low carb more easily. And it has something to do with desserts. I'll give that away. And we've got some samples that
we have dessert for everybody.
Yeah, we have desserts to show just how delicious they can be. The dessert, by the way, that we're going to be serving today is a George Stella recipe. George is in the Harborside room across the little portico there. And he's going to be doing a demo today, a food demo today, tomorrow, and Sunday. And he's a fantastic chef. Definitely, you want to go check him out and see what's going on. So just a few comments about Sweetalkers and why low carb eating is so important to people wanting a better understanding and better control of their blood sugar. So it's not just about diabetics, it's about anybody who is concerned about their blood sugar. Sweetalkers is an educational group, and we provide current nutritional information to diabetics. We talk about the impact of food on our blood sugar levels, and we focus not only on the carb contents of food, but on the quality of food. We encourage clean, organic, nutrient-dense food, and we talk about the holistic effect that food has on your overall body and mind. Now, Lisa is an MSW, a diabetic educator, a certified holistic nutritionist, and a type 1 diabetic. She'll tell her story in a few minutes. I've been studying insulin resistance at the Institute of Nutritional Endocrinology in Austin, and I'm pre-diabetic. So we also remind our members that food should be tested individually. You know, we're all different. Foods that drive my blood sugar up might have no effect on your blood sugar. The only way to really know is by using your blood glucose meter. And we encourage everybody to use a blood glucose meter and just to understand how food really affects exactly how blood sugar is coursing through their body. You know, if you think about it, there's actually a lot of geeks up in Silicon Valley who are wearing CGMs right now, continuous glucose monitors. They're not diabetic. They just want to understand the effect that food has on their brain power, on their physical power, etc. And it's becoming a very common thing to see people testing their blood sugar even if they're not diabetic. Keep in mind also that commercial foods are loaded with pesticides, chemical additives, sugar, and salt. These things hide in places that you wouldn't expect. Commercial low-carb foods often add salt to provide more flavor when reducing carbs. So you're just trading one bad thing for another. Be careful, be vigilant, and be sure to read your food labels. One of the best ways to control our blood sugar is through food, and food is the single most potent weapon that we have in our fight for health. One of the best ways to optimize our health and blood sugar is through what we eat. And we also deserve to enjoy the food that we eat. Now, this is a topic that's probably more important to diabetics because diabetics have been eating kind of cardboard food and very plain food and not even ketogenic food necessarily, but very bad food. And we are trying to convince people that by eating a more low-carb diet, they can live fulfilling and tasty and delicious lives. So So that's what it's all about.
Can we interrupt
Oh, sure. Feel free.
Does anybody here remember when low carb came in the 90s?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Yes, we all ate the same cardboard.
Yeah.
I think it started out with a this great concept that we could now eat satisfying and delicious food. But unfortunately, it got very polluted by a lot of the food manufacturers and sort of died off for a while. So we are back with more information and better tasting foods.
Thank you, Lisa. It's hard to change from one way of eating to another way of eating. So we suggest to our diabetic patients that they take a slower approach, where small changes build over time into large changes and large permanent changes. There are those of us who think going cold turkey is really the best way to make changes, but we may be opening ourselves up to dramatic failures. Sure, there's some people who can do it this way, but most people need a slower transition and need to build step by step. Now, the ADA, the American Diabetes Association, suggests that diabetics eat a minimum of 130 carbs a day. This is a little on the high side.
I actually had, in one of our meetings recently, I actually had a certified diabetes educator show up there with her husband, and they tried to take over the meeting, and were claiming loudly to all of our group members that they should never, ever eat less than 130 carbs because their brains needed it. The brains need, and I tried to explain to them that your brain needs glucose. Your brain does not need carbohydrates. It's not an essential.
Thank you. So one thing about the ADA, they are becoming a little more open to low carb because it's being talked about so much more. So I think everybody here at this conference is kind of singing the same tune, all talking about low carb, talking about keto, the different flavors of low carb. And the ADA is starting to come around a little bit, but the ADA gets funded by big pharma and big food, and so they're really more interested in keeping you eating badly and keeping you taking their medications for long term. I'm afraid that's kind of the downside of capitalism, but it only shows that we have to be our own advocates. We have to take care of ourselves. Low carb eating for diabetics, by the way, should probably start around 60 carbs a day, not 130 carbs a day. But remember, I said everybody's different. So if you exercise a couple hours a day, you could probably eat anything that you want and not worry about carbs. If you're a type 1 diabetic and you're shooting insulin and you don't care how much insulin you shoot, well, you could eat anything you want too. We don't recommend this, actually. And there are certain plant-based, very strict diets that are higher carb but let you control your blood sugar. So we're talking some generalizations here. Just realize that your own mileage may vary. So let's go back to where it all started. And I'd like to start off with Lisa telling a little bit about her story, if you wouldn't mind.
Okay. I'm Lisa. Hello, everybody. Welcome and thank you for coming today. Mark and I are really excited to have you all here. This is seems like a counterintuitive presentation, but I think we'll certainly explain that a little bit further. Just briefly, I was diagnosed as a type 1 diabetic 16 years ago. And at that time, I was told I could eat fish, meat, and vegetables. Now, I didn't like vegetables and I didn't like meat. So I remember coming home and telling Mark, why don't I just go and drop my face in the grass? I mean, I could just graze, right? So it was a real struggle for me because I knew nothing about food, almost nothing, hardly ever ate, and I certainly did not know how to cook it. And with the options that were available in the recipes, it was very disheartening. And then the low carb movement came around. And that was a real turnaround and a real aha moment for me. But as I said, before, they started coming out with these horrible tasting products. And I did not know how to cook. I have since learned to cook, and I have learned to bake like the wind.
And really well.
Yes. But there is a way. And sweet taste is natural. It's natural for us to want that. Not to the extent that our sad diet has encouraged us to, certainly. But there is a place for it and there is a good use for it. So we'll get on about me more later, but go ahead.
Thank you, Lisa. In terms of myself, I was running a startup software company and living with constant stress. And stress certainly does raise your blood sugar. I was binge eating. When I get stressed out, I tend to eat badly. And I was overweight. I was probably pre-diabetic for years, but about 2 years ago I decided I really need to do something about this. I'm not getting any younger and I'm not getting any healthier. I decided it was not going to fix itself. I have the power to change, and I needed to become my own advocate. Excuse me. No one was going to do this for me. What was keeping me from changing? I'm not sure. Inertia, stress, laziness, it's hard to say. But you know what? We can each be our own advocates. We have the power to change anything we want in our lives. We just have to do it. Now this sounds simple, but there's emotional blocks and physical blocks and imaginary blocks that stand in our way. But I realized that nothing would change for me until I decided to make that change. So with great resolve, I decided to try and copy the way Lisa was eating, but I failed. Eating poorly was such a habit for me. I would eat a meal and then I'd still be hungry. And I'd want a snack or something that gave me that full and satisfying feeling. It was horrible. Every time I fell off the wagon, I'd feel guilty. I'd feel like a failure, and it was just becoming a hot mess. And then Lisa came up with a brainstorm. And that's what we're really talking about today. And it's the easy way to transition to low carb through delicious desserts.
Can I say something?
Of course.
Oh, okay. Okay. I call these transition foods, and this isn't the desserts, transition foods. They're not the only transition foods that we use, but a number of the people that we come across and that come to us are addicted to carbohydrates, and badly addicted. And it's very, very hard for them to make this switch. And so one day I just decided, I think it was the beginning of keto. And I started looking at keto desserts, which are low carb but very high fat. And I discovered whole cream. Oh my God. I started making chocolate pies. And I'd have half the pie in the morning and half the pie in the evening. Okay? But that's part of what I needed to do to get myself to stick with a low carb diet. And I really started spending a lot of time thinking about transition foods and how to help people. Because if you don't have the motivation and you don't have an assortment of delicious foods, what do you do? How do you get yourself moving? Okay, so the transition foods then came up. Okay, sorry.
No problem. So it does take willpower to make changes in our lives, but we don't have unlimited willpower. We only have so much willpower each day, and we have to be careful about how we use it. It tends to be fresh and ready in the morning, but as the day wears on, we get distracted by so many things competing for our attention and our brain power. Our willpower starts to wane a little bit. It's not that you're weak or failing. It's just the natural ebb and flow of power in our daily energy level. Let me give you an example. Let's say you're going to start the day off with a healthy breakfast, but before you have breakfast, you go check your email and you find that there's 5 or 6 emergency things that you have to take care of right away. So maybe you skip breakfast altogether and deal with the fires, but by the time that you're done, your brain is so worn down and your willpower is so worn down, it's very hard to focus on the rest of the day and keep going and keep eating low carb. Now, if you're at this conference, you're probably either eating low carb now, or teaching low carb, or considering moving to low carb. We're here to help you in any of these cases. Personally, these ideas made all the difference to me, but if you're living a low carb lifestyle now, these tips and ideas can make it easier in times of stress or difficulty, or just when your willpower is not as strong as your cravings. So let's get down to it. Here's the big question. Do you want to change your diet or your lifestyle? Diets tend to be short-term solutions, not necessarily by design, but because they're very hard to stick to. We often undertake a diet to lose weight. Just look at all the diet books there are out on the market. Every week there's a new twist on a new diet that's guaranteed to make you lose weight. Has anybody been on a diet before? Yeah? 1 or 2, right? And how many people are still on that diet? Anybody? I know I've been on a bunch. How long does a diet tend to last? A few months? 6 months? A year? A year would be very, very long, and I guarantee that you can't do that without a coach or a partner or an incredible health scare. And yes, fear does make a very effective motivator. Here at Low Carb USA, we're talking about lifestyle changes. We're talking about the low carb lifestyle. It's a longer term solution. It can be customized for each person. In fact, to be most effective, we believe that it must be customized. Remember, what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for everybody else. We need to tweak our food so that it works individually for us. Now, within low carb, there's a lot of different flavors. There's keto, there's Atkins, there's zone, paleo, rainbow green, South Beach, and many, many more. Each has rules, each has things you can eat and things that you can't eat. But we recommend that you look through all the different low carb diets and basically pick and choose what works for you. Now, you don't have to treat it like an Orthodox religion, where if you break a rule, you have to go to confession or you get punished at all. You can create your own low-carb diet by choosing bits and pieces from the other diets that are out there. The challenge, though, is to come up with elements that are delicious and tasty and make you feel like you're not missing anything. Watch out for marketing and gimmicks, though. Just recently, I read a story about how somebody discovered ancient bread in an old tomb. And then they said, people on paleo diets can now eat bread. Obviously, our paleo ancestors ate bread. This is not very good. Makes me think back to the old days when in the Mormon church, Mormons could not drink Coca-Cola. And then one day, after a couple of years, the Mormon church did a very large sugar beet deal with Coca-Cola. And the head of the Mormon church had a revelation and came out and said, it's okay to drink Coke now. So watch out for gimmicks, watch out for marketing, customize your own low-carb lifestyle. You'll be happier for it, and it will be easier for you. So why is food so hard? There's endless reasons that we eat the way we do. Maybe your grandmother made a special dish that you associate with loving emotions and you still crave that today. Patterns set up in our young years have far-reaching effects later in life. There are other reasons as well. Lack of time, we need to grab something quick, convenience, waiting to eat so you get so hungry you make a poor choice. Lots and lots of reasons. When you repeat something day in and day out, it becomes a pattern. And we human beings are interesting creatures because we have so much on our minds at every point in time. Our subconscious helps us by creating habits. Now, when a habit is created, it becomes automatic. You do it without thinking, and that saves you brain power and it saves you time. But habits are very hard to break. You can't just say stop. Well, you can, but that doesn't work for most people. It could help to analyze where the habit comes from, but often we don't have the time for this, or we can't figure out where it comes from, or trying to figure it out becomes an obsession in itself. The good news is you don't really have to know where and when a habit started, and you don't have to really even recognize that you have a habit, although it does help. Remember, it's hard to fix something unless you recognize there's a problem, but the easiest way to change a bad habit is to replace it with a better habit. It's as simple as that. So how do we create a new habit? For those of you who insist on going back to the beginning, let your mind go back to where that specific habit started. I remember back in high school, I had a folk singing group, and after every gig that we did, we'd go to a restaurant, Howard Johnson's if anybody remembers that, and have an ice cream soda. And it left me with a great memory of ice cream sodas, and I'm still emotionally attracted to them today. Patterns that happen in their young years have far-reaching ramifications. Like I said though, you don't have to delve deep into your emotional past. And the good news here is that we're only talking about food. Changing food is much easier than changing smoking and drinking. Food is only something we eat every day of our lives, which I guess makes it a little hard to change. But it's not as hard as some of the other things that are out there. It takes us right back to the concept of changing our lifestyle. How can we do this when there are all these complicated emotional and educational and situational issues that dictate how and what we eat? If we're trying to move to a low-carb lifestyle, there's plenty of low-carb foods that can be just as satisfying as the high-carb foods that we're used to eating. So let me share a technique with you, a technique for changing a habit. It's not that hard, but it does require some planning and a little bit of work. The first thing you have to do is design it. Let me use an example to clarify. I used to start the day with something nice and carby, like a scone or a croissant or two croissants. To change that habit, I had to design a new one. So I decided that I would start the day with a green smoothie. So first, I decided what would be in it, how long it's going to take to make it, what are the steps I have to take to clean the veggies, put them in the blender, make the drink. This is the design part I'm talking about. It's not a casual thing. You have to sketch out in detail the habit that you're going to create. Remember, we're creating something entirely new here, so our brains have to completely drink it in and understand it. The next thing you have to do is kind of go through the steps in your mind. Unless you can see yourself doing something mentally, it's much harder to do it physically. You know, great athletes also practice in their minds. They practice their techniques, they practice what they're doing, their runs or what have you, in their minds. So imagine making the green drink, tasting it. How will you feel when you drink it? Good, energetic, successful? Imagine how it'll feel getting all those delicious veggies into your body to start the day. Next, we try to make it easy. I have to be sure I have the right veggies in the fridge. I have to be sure I have the time in the morning to go ahead and make this thing. I have to make sure the blender is clean and ready to go. I can even make it easier by making enough to cover me for 3 days and put the rest in the fridge. So I want to make it that easy and that quick. So then I perform the ritual, if you will, and I do it once, and it's good. I feel good about it. I do it again, and I feel like I accomplished something great. But you know, after a few days, the body wants to go back to its old habits. This is a natural thing. Don't worry about it. You get pulled back to your habits by a natural force, because the body hates to break a habit if you're not really serious about it. That's why designing it and thinking through it really does help. So if you fall off the bandwagon, if you fail for a day, don't worry about it. Don't beat yourself up about it. Get back on the road the next day. Each day it'll get a little easier. The beautiful thing about this is that after a month of repeating this new habit, your subconscious will actually work for you, and it will create a new habit. It makes a habit for you. It makes you crave it. It finally becomes the habit where you want all those green drinks in the morning, every morning. So it is a little bit of work, yeah, but it takes some effort to change our lives and our habits. Keep an eye on the prize and the fact that you'll get easier and easier over time, and that you'll be healthier, you'll lose weight, you'll feel better about yourself and be happier. Some work and planning is required, but the end result is really worth it. And we have a few ways to reward yourself and make it easier on your way to a healthier, happier lifestyle. So let's talk about cravings. This is one of the hard parts. I think the hardest thing to deal with when transitioning to low carb is cravings, actually. They tend to hit you at the worst times when your willpower is low and there's nothing low carb to eat in the house. One major helpful hint is to get rid of all those foods with empty carbs sitting in your pantry. I know it's hard to throw away perfectly good food, but we're changing our lives here. It's really worth it. It's really worth spending the time and throwing out all those crackers and cookies and cakes and chips. Just dump them. Yes, Lisa?
Before you do that, every time I hear that, and when I used to hear that, I think, oh God, no. Before you do that, do some research. Take some time to plan and look through mug cake books, desserts, crackers, keto or low carb. Make a few of those recipes, have those on hand. Then it's a lot easier to trash the rest of the stuff.
And are those foods perfectly good anyway?
Which?
All the ones you're going to throw out.
No, they're not perfectly good. I mean, they're good for people who are not interested in low carb. But, you know, the cravings will still hit you. So those old carby foods are going to look mighty good at that time. So if they're not as easily available, it's going to be much easier for you. So you need a plan and a system. And honestly, it's worth it to put in a little time and effort into planning so you can transition to low carb more easily. Be sure to have some alternatives in the pantry and your fridge. By alternatives, I mean healthy, low carb, high healthy fat foods. And of course, healthy fats are great because they actually fill you up, make you feel more satisfied, and they're very healthy, and they're great to replace all those carbs that you're replacing. This is one of the keys to easy transition. Low carb, high healthy fat food. It's a little hard to say. You can eat it and not feel guilty. It's nutritious, it's delicious, it'll help you on your road, and it won't stop you, it won't hurt you. Now, nuts are a great item to consider here. Macadamia nuts, my favorite, almonds, walnuts. These are fantastic low-carb snacks. They're high in quality, healthy fats. They're filling, and they're delicious. Cucumbers are great too. Pair cucumbers with some walnuts, and you've got the perfect snack. To round out your overall health, consider something like a green drink. It's a perfect thing to include in the morning, a great way to start the day. You can also put some lemon juice and water in the morning, It's an alkalizing and detoxing drink and very good for you. You can drink that during the day if you like as well. Green tea is a wonderful addition at the end of the day. It's soothing, has many beneficial qualities, and it's also very healthy. So a bit more detail about cravings. You know, the worst cravings always seem to hit at night. You've eaten well all day, you're feeling good about yourself, but after dinner, maybe you crave something sweet and something tasty, and our willpower is low and we've been so good, can't we just cheat a little? Now we know we shouldn't eat 3 or 4 hours before we go to bed, but do you know why? It turns out that when we go to bed, your body cleans up from the day. It detoxes, repairs, rebuilds, washes out debris from your brain. Sleep is very important, as we all know. But what you may not know is that the hormone that starts it all is called growth hormone. Now, what you probably do know is the hormone that is in charge of moving glucose into the cells is called insulin. It turns out that insulin and growth hormone are bitter enemies. If there's insulin in your system, growth hormone won't show up. And if there's food in your body, there will be insulin there. So if you eat close to bedtime, insulin is busy helping move the glucose into your cells, and growth hormone won't be repairing you and rebuilding you and taking care of your body. Your sleep will not be doing the job that it's meant to do. So don't eat 3 hours before bedtime if you possibly can help it, okay? Back to those cravings. What we found was the most powerful secret that we ever really ran into was desserts. Low-carb desserts.
Can I?
Yes?
Can I interrupt?
Please.
Okay. Well, I left off at night eating half a chocolate pie in the morning and half at night. And what I discovered over a long period of making desserts, and some of them are on our website, is that my cravings reduce significantly. The more high fat, the more ketogenic desserts, low carb, high fat, the less cravings I had for sweets. I rarely eat them now, although I usually have something in the house. But in Mark's case, he was having a terrible time just with the low carb, so this very much speaks to what you're talking about. So I started making him ketogenic brownies. He loves brownies. And so little, small little chunks. And that is, in part, is what helped him stick to the low carb. So you can use them very effectively. I'll talk about it a little bit more, but I just wanted to...
Yeah, that's absolutely true, because once we discovered that having great low-carb desserts was around, all of a sudden the cravings weren't hitting so much. Or when they did, I'd have a brownie or two, and they were only like 2 carbs per brownie. And they were delicious. I felt satisfied, I felt full, and I ended up losing 35 pounds, which was great, and feeling a whole lot better. So the secret is planning and preparing some low-carb desserts. It doesn't take long. You can make brownies, pound cake, pudding, cheesecake, almond bark. There's low-carb varieties, low-carb recipes of all of these things. Today, we do have an example for you to taste. Last night, we made a couple of low-carb pecan pound cakes, George Stella's recipe, and you get to taste them, as soon as we're done. They are so delicious. You're not going to believe that it's only 2.5 carbs per slice, net carbs per slice. 2.5 carbs. That's like incredible. We love George Stella. He's next door. Make sure that you see him tomorrow or the next day. About once a week.
I'm paid for this to promote George. It's just that I think he has 10 cookbooks out now, and he takes standard American comfort food and makes it low carb, and it tastes delicious. I mean, it tastes like what we're accustomed to.
Yeah,
so
great.
that's part of it. And certainly there are plant-based desserts and other things we can go into. But I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. About once a week, Lisa makes low-carb brownies or another dessert for us, and we have dessert after dinner, and we feel satisfied. It fights the cravings, and we feel great about what we're eating. Remember, low carb does not mean low fat. Include healthy fats in the recipes, and you'll find them very satisfying. Low carb desserts, we think, are one great answer to making the tradition to low carb lifestyle easy and delicious. So, low carb desserts can be just as satisfying as high carb food, and it's certainly much healthier, and it will also even out your blood sugar if you're diabetic. And if you're not diabetic, it'll still even out your blood sugar, which is great. Be sure to have low-carb desserts and snacks in the house every day. You can eat a dessert as a snack anytime if a craving hits. But our favorite low-carb snacks, as Lisa said, are brownies. They're incredible, and George is making brownies next door, so be sure to get some of those new brownies that he's doing. For a real treat, you can make a low-carb cheesecake. Now cheesecake, I never thought that cheesecake could possibly be low-carb, but we found a great low-carb cheesecake recipe, and you feel like you're pigging out and you're doing just terribly evil things, and it's just delicious. But this pecan pound cake, 2.5 net carbs per slice, it's really, really good. So to summarize, be prepared. Spend a little time to make a plan, and you will succeed. Be sure to have some low-carb snacks in the house. The best way to do this is to learn to make them yourself. But it's really not hard, and it doesn't take much time, so please try it. But if you can't cook or bake, you can get some terrific low-carb snacks. Things like cheese chips, Wisps, you can get these at Costco. They're 0 carbs. They're really fantastic, and you can eat as many as you want.
With preservation.
Go get some of your favorite.
I'm the food monitor.
Be sure to have some of your favorite nuts around, macadamia nuts, almonds, walnuts. Be sure to hydrate. Drink plenty of water. It's healthy. It keeps you full. I like to make 3 days worth of green drinks at a time and keep them around to drink. It's a great way to start the day. And in fact, we even have a recipe for you for a terrific green drink. I like to put organic greens like lettuce and spinach, cucumber, bok choy, and celery. Then I'll add some ground flaxseed and maybe some chia seeds. Now, these are fiber. And fiber is a whole different presentation, but it's really, really important to get a lot of fiber in your diet to keep your system moving and to keep it clean. I put in some sea veggies, some ginger, some curcumin, some lemon juice and avocado for smoothness and healthy fat, and maybe a few blueberries. Put these all in a Blendtec or a Vitamix or another powerful blender, and you'll have all the nutrients along with the fiber from all these veggies. Great, great stuff. Target to stay around 20 carbs per meal if you can. Remember, your mileage will vary, your personal goals will vary, but for diabetics, we recommend around 20 carbs per meal.
To start.
To start. And create a nighttime ritual for yourself where you wind down, you have some green tea and relax before bedtime. When you're doing low carb, there's no need to count calories, which is great. You just count your carbs. I've never counted calories for 2 years, and I still lose weight. Eating clean, organic, low carb, and high healthy fat will improve your health, stabilize your blood sugar, and will give you more energy to apply to the positive things in your life. So we do have some handouts for today. We've got George's recipe that you'll taste in a minute. We've got a little sheet on Sweetalkers, and we've got a green smoothie recipe. You could also check out our website. And in fact, if you go to sweetalkers.org/desserts, you'll find some nice other dessert recipes that we put together for you.
One of them is chocolate coconut fudge, and I had to make 7 batches of that to get it right. Not 8. I had, that was horrible. So, and there's also a pizza with a low carb crust that I had to make many of and eat as well. It was torture. But there's also a really nice avocado chocolate mousse. And so when you think about desserts, you can also start thinking about including some healthier things with your desserts to make it plant-based desserts, which is a whole other discussion. But I think the point that we want to make here in conclusion is that it's not like a major brainstorm, but to use desserts. But it's something, as I said, that is counterintuitive. Most people will not tell you to do that. And certainly, we're thinking about where do you start and how do you progress. If you're changing your lifestyle, you're going to do that over a period of time. To make it stick, that's usually what you're going to do. You're not going to go from a sad diet to a completely all plant-based diet, which is advocated by a lot of people. You're going to go steps. And so I think this just has a lot of common sense. It has certainly helped both of us and helped a lot of our diabetic group members to say to them, no, go ahead, eat that, all right? It's got some healthy ingredients in it. It's not a crime. It's not a sin, okay? And I'm very grateful to the ketogenic movement in particular, because what I was missing when I first started on low carb was the healthy fats. And I was feeling really deprived and frustrated. And it wasn't until we both sort of tripped onto that we were really able to make major inroads in both our blood sugar and our health. So, cake, anyone?
Any questions? Any questions? Yes?
What about sweeteners?
Sweeteners? We tend to use stevia quite a bit. Stevia. And for baking, we use xylitol. Xylitol.
It's not better erythritol than xylitol, because I was reading that xylitol has some in it.
We did an entire presentation on the best sugars. And so if anybody here wants that presentation, our business cards are up here. Send us an email, and I'll shoot it out to you. Because in particular, there were some fascinating sugars from South America that have medicinal benefits as well, that are not well known in the States. Certainly monk fruit is one, but there's also lucuma and a few others. So let us hear from you, and please feel free to take those
come up and
documents.
get a sample here.
Here, let me put them over here.
Any other questions? Just feel free to.
Do you guys use sorbitol? We could have an argument about that.
Between the two of you or amongst
No,
other?
our chef also. We have a chef. And
for tonight? No.
what I learned about sugars was to use the least processed, most natural. Here we go. And swerve is processed. And I think more than that, they put out a good story about it. Also,
He can pound cake. 2.5, less than 2.5 carbs for these little slices.
Yes. So he was just arguing with me yesterday about it, and I'm saying, it's a toss-up in my head. Because the manufacturers won't tell what their manufacturing process is, that makes me suspicious. And if I can find a substitute, it's better. And thank you guys so much. Well, show me. Taste it and see what you think.
Is that tasty?
And the recipe for this one, oh, it is here.
It's right over there. Recipe is right over there.
It's amazing. Now I'm gonna go see if I can get a taste of that brownie over there.
We've got plenty here, so.
Take a piece more.
So
So I'm taking these are keto, right? This is keto, right?
It's low carb.
Okay, yeah, that's,
So, yeah, it's keto.
yeah,
It's 2.5 net carbs. So
yeah.
it's like nothing to it. Wait till you taste it. Right. That's delicious. Have some more? Okay.
The texture reminds me of, it's really so moist.
Yeah, it is very nice. Absolutely.
It's also we talked about it.
Yeah.
So do you
I'm so pleased to hear that.
I can explain, I'm not the diabetes group, so I say go keto, it's low carb, and so inevitably the type 2 opinions are insane. You type 2 have no understanding, no idea what other type 1s go through. And yes, I haven't lived it, but I do understand about this as well. Well, no, I mean, I don't want to minimize that it is different. I just did classes. No, I'm just took the keto and I've learned a lot. And I always say, I don't argue back. I say, just please go check out type 1 grid. Please go check out type 1 grid and then we can talk. And I mean, I just get the practice and I understand that there's more ups and downs. And then if you would do keto, that would be less for you.
How is this so moist? What is it?
Oh, yes. If you want to take another piece home with you, please please feel free, we've got plenty.
Cool.
How is it so moist?
Okay.
Is it a zucchini or something?
No. As a matter of fact, what I like about George's recipes is they're fairly simple. You know, so
What?
Well, this is almond flour, right? And so you put
Oh, and butter.
and butter.
And eggs. And grape cheese.
2.5 net carbs.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, it's quite amazing. Take it down.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's too much. That's, I can stay. I don't make it. I don't make it stuff like this. It's delicious. Thank you very much. That's the holidays.
Hey, baby. It is good.
So I also had Mark
George,
these.
he's
I
amazing.
had him lower the sugar.
Thank you so much.
And not hard to make either.
Instead of
Takes like 15 minutes to put it together.
What is your favorite brownie recipe?
I'm always looking
Is it
at
off
that.
the phone?
It's his, yeah.
George's?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I don't know what.
He's all low carb.
The last time we made
Yeah,
it,
he
it
does
was
amazing recipes. He's got like 9 cookbooks out now.
That was cider,
Salt
or no?
Well, salt is good.
Yeah, now, what,
I don't know.
you mentioned salt to me a couple times being
Oh, okay.
bad.
Yeah, it's just George Stella. There are a couple of his books are over there. You can look, but
Have you read the Salt Pencil? Salt. It's a book about salt and the importance of salt. And
Because
yes,
my doctor recommends that we add more salt.
right.
Well, but the problem is that the sodium and potassium balance is what you're looking for. And so you want your potassium to be twice the amount of your sodium. So what I see in a lot of recipes is a whole lot of salt and 24 milligrams of potassium.
Salt is particularly bad if you're on a sad diet and you have high omega-6 oils and high carb. When you go on a low carb diet and your body